All right, then.
Can you believe it's been 25 years since The Mummy hit theaters back in May 1999, and yet fans are still scratching their heads, wondering why we haven't seen a fourth installment in the franchise. But hey, hold on to your hats, because there's some buzz about a reboot starring Keanu Reeves that might just be in the works. Well, let's dive into everything we know. For those unfamiliar, Universal Studios had a golden era in the 1930s when they brought iconic horror figures like Dracula, Frankenstein's monster, and the Mummy to the big screen. These films were massive hits, spawning sequels, spin-offs, and even Saturday morning cartoons. But times have changed, and so has our taste in horror. While classics like Dracula and the Mummy once ruled the silver screen, newer faces like Ghostface from Scream and Jigsaw from Saw have taken their place in the spotlight. It's not necessarily a bad thing, it's just the natural evolution of pop culture. But for those who grew up with the classics, there's a nostalgic yearning for the days of old, even before the heyday of the 80s slashers like Freddy and Jason. Unfortunately, recent attempts to revive the Mummy and other classic monsters haven't quite hit the mark at the box office. Plus, the fact that these characters are now in the public domain only adds to the confusion, making it harder for studios to carve out a unique identity for them in today's crowded landscape. The first Mummy film kicked off a whole franchise, including the Scorpion King series. But let's be real, as much as we love the franchise, most folks agree that things kind of went downhill as they kept churning out movies. Still, there's no denying the magic of the OG flick, the 1999 classic The Mummy. Even though it's undeniably a product of the 90s, it's got that timeless charm that keeps fans coming back for more. And boy, do they want more! People have been itching for a fourth installment for ages, with some wild theories floating around about where the story could go next. So why all the hype for The Mummy 4? Well, it's really simple, because the first movie still holds up like a champ even after 25 years. Sure, there are a few cringe-worthy moments, like the iffy Egyptian representation and the CGI that's showing its age, but hey, given the era it was made in, we can cut it some slack. Plus, the movie's got so much else going for it. I mean, just look at how it effortlessly blends action, adventure, horror, and comedy into one epic package. You've got your heart-pounding action scenes, and your spine-chilling moments with the baddie, and let's not forget about the swoon-worthy romance between Rick and Evelyn. It's like a roller coaster of emotions, with laughs, scares, and heartwarming moments all rolled into one. And that's why fans are still holding out hope for The Mummy 4, because they know lightning can strike twice. Alright, let's talk about the juicy rumors swirling around a potential Mummy reboot starring none other than Keanu Reeves. Could you imagine? The internet practically exploded with excitement when whispers of this started making the rounds. But hold on to your hats, folks, because we're diving deep into what's possible with this reboot. First off, let's address the elephant in the room, Keanu Reeves. The man's practically a living legend at this point. From The Matrix to John Wick, he's got an after the credits role, so the thought of him taking on a Mummy role, it's enough to make any fan's heart skip a beat. But here's the thing, how would a Mummy reboot with Keanu even work? Well, there are a few different directions they could take. One option is to go the traditional route, sticking close to the original storyline but giving it a modern twist. Picture this, Keanu, as an archaeologist or adventurer, stumbles upon an ancient curse that unleashes an undead terror upon the world. It's classic Mummy movie material, but with Keanu's trademark charisma and action-packed chops thrown into the mix. Then again, they could shake things up entirely and take the reboot in a whole new direction. Maybe Keanu isn't just fighting against some run-of-the-mill mummy, he's facing off against a whole army of undead horrors, each more terrifying than the last. It'd be like The Mummy meets John Wick, with Keanu dishing out justice with his usual flair while battling against the forces of darkness. Now that's a movie I'd pay good money to see. Of course, there's always the possibility of a more nuanced approach, delving deeper into the mythology and lore behind the Mummy curse. Imagine Keanu as a reluctant hero, forced to confront his own demons, secrets of an ancient evil. It'd be a darker, more introspective take on the genre, but with Keanu at the helm, you know it'd be a journey worth taking. But here's the multi-million-dollar question, will it actually happen? I mean, let's be real, Hollywood loves its reboots and remakes, so the idea of a Mummy reboot with Keanu Reeves isn't exactly far-fetched. Plus, with Keanu's star power at an all-time high, you can bet studios are chomping at the bit to get him on board. On the other hand, there are always obstacles to overcome. For starters, finding the right script. I mean, you can't just slap Keanu Reeves into any old mummy movie and call it a day. The script has to be top-notch, with enough twists and turns to keep audiences on the edge of their seats. Then there's the matter of securing the right director. I mean, we're talking about a mummy movie here. It's got to have that perfect blend of action, adventure, and just a touch of horror to keep things spicy. So finding someone who can balance all those elements while also bringing out the best in Keanu? Yeah, that's no small feat. And let's not forget about the budget. I mean, we're talking about a mummy movie starring Keanu Reeves here. You know it's going to cost a pretty penny to pull off. From jaw-dropping special effects to epic action sequences, this thing's going to need some serious cash behind it if it's going to live up to the hype. But hey, if there's one thing Hollywood loves, it's a challenge. And with Keanu Reeves leading the charge, you can bet they'll pull out all the stops to make this mummy reboot a reality. So until then, we'll just have to keep our fingers crossed and our eyes peeled for any updates. That said, why hasn't The Mummy 4 happened yet? Well, there are a few factors at play. First off, the sequels to the original Mummy didn't quite live up to the hype. Both The Mummy Returns and The Mummy Tomb of the Dragon Emperor got some pretty harsh reviews and didn't perform as well at the box office as the first flick. This led Universal Pictures to rethink the whole franchise. Then came the 2017 reboot starring Tom Cruise, which was supposed to kickstart a whole new Dark Universe franchise for Universal. But guess what? It flopped just as hard as Tomb of the Dragon Emperor, essentially putting the brakes on any plans for The Mummy 4. Plus, Brendan Fraser, who played the lead in the original trilogy, faced some tough times with injuries and mental health issues, which made his return to the franchise seem unlikely. But hey, there's a silver lining. Fraser's been making a comeback lately, both physically and professionally. He's even said he'd be down to return to The Mummy if the right opportunity came along. In interviews, he's been pretty open about his willingness to jump back into the action. And let's not forget, the original Mummy movie still has a pretty solid fan base. People have been itching to see those characters back in action for years. Plus, Fraser himself has become something of a hero for overcoming his struggles, making a return to the franchise even more appealing. So while The Mummy 4 might still be up in the air, there's definitely a lot of potential there. With a beloved star like Brendan Fraser and a fan base eager for a reboot done right, maybe it's time for Hollywood to give it another shot. And that's that for today's video. Thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next one. Your suggestions for future videos are always welcome in the comments below.